What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Gerald here with your weather forecast. Hope we're all staying safe out there tomorrow as we really begin to prepare for this big time severe weather outbreak on the way. And this is going to impact millions of Americans. So that's really going to be the focus of all of today's video. I'm going to spend just about every minute of this video really talking about tomorrow and a little bit on Saturday as well, because I really want you to be prepared. And as we saw last week, these things can really turn deadly. So the more you are informed of this topic, the higher likelihood we have of saving lives out there. So with that said, also, if you know anybody in this area, definitely share this video with them. Or if you don't share the video, just tell them to, keep their heads up and their ears open and make sure that they have a way to get those warnings tomorrow as the severe weather sweeps on through. So with that, let's go ahead and get right into it, because I'm sure a lot of us are kind of a bit eager to learn a little bit more about what we're expecting tomorrow. So we'll start off with satellite here, and the satellite does really a good job of kind of going ahead and showing the setup leading into tomorrow. So we have two kind of very distinct things going on. One is this big area of clear weather in the east, and then the other is this very strong low pressure moving ashore the west coast. Now these two things are really going to work in tandem, as you can see they already kind of are here in the southern plains, to cause some big time severe weather and likely reach outbreak status by the time all is said and done. So what's happening right now is this high pressure is beginning to move off the coast, and with that clockwise flow, it is beginning to advect this warm air northward through the Mississippi River Valley, and that combined with this low pressure moving ashore the west coast and eventually crossing the plains, you're going to get two very distinct things to happen. So you're going to get this wind coming very strongly here to the east and from the west, really beginning tomorrow, and that combined with the wind coming out of the south, bringing in warm air into this area, you're getting this spinning of the air. So as these storms begin to kind of fire off tomorrow, triggered by this cold front moving on through, as they gain height, they're going to tap into this wind shear, and as they begin to spin, you're going to run that risk of very strong, long-tracked, dangerous tornadoes for a lot of different areas. So quickly taking a look at the hazards right now, we do have a lot going on this map, as you can tell. We do have some winter weather advisories and winter storm watches and warnings up here into the northern plains, so we will see some snow with this. I'll just touch really briefly on that in this video. But other than that, we have a ton of wind advisories, red flag warnings, and high wind warnings through a big chunk of the country here. So all of this is because of that low pressure. It's going to be very strong. The winds are going to be whipping as the atmosphere kind of tries to balance itself out between that high pressure and the low pressure, and that is going to cause some very strong winds with this thing as it sweeps on through the country. So behind this front, even though the severe weather will die down behind it, those strong winds will definitely pick up, and so just kind of make sure you have everything kind of tightened down through much of the really central and southern half of the lower 48 over the weekend. So another thing I want to show you here, again, this kind of goes back and ties into the satellite, but this is just, again, looking at the overall setup we are working with going into tomorrow. So this is a model forecast for what it thinks the pressure in the atmosphere will look like tomorrow afternoon. And again, you can notice this very strong low pressure here coupled with this very strong high pressure. And as those are working in tandem, we're going to get that effect that I just discussed with the wind shear and plenty of warm air to work with as well to help these storms really become severe. So now talking about the actual threat tomorrow and giving you the forecast for it. This is the latest Storm Prediction Center outlook. This just came out an hour or two ago at the time of recording this. And you can tell we kind of have two very distinct areas tomorrow. So up here into this first block, this is kind of the northern area of severe weather. And up here, the main threats will be strong, damaging winds, as well as hail and the potential of some strong, long-track tornadoes. Down here into this southern risk area, the bigger threat will be tornadoes compared to hail and wind, although those two things are also still going to be on the table. Also, I think up here in this northern bit will be more of a daytime and evening threat, while this area down here will be more of an evening and overnight threat. So the timing is also a little different between these two areas tomorrow afternoon and even into the overnight as well. So we'll start by looking at the hail outlook tomorrow, and the highest threat for that hail will be up here into sections of Iowa and northern Illinois, and the main reason for that just because we have colder air up into the higher levels of the atmosphere up here, so as these storms begin to climb and those updrafts pick up, it'll just be easier for them to produce that hail due to that cold core, as you might kind of hear that phrase thrown around. Next threat, though, is that strong wind, and again, this wind is going to be a big deal for everyone in these moderate risks and in between the moderate risks. So if you're not in the red area on that first map, you're looking at this map now and you kind of are in that red area. Some of you are even in this purplish color. So again, this just means that we are very confident we're going to have widespread damaging winds with this line of storms tomorrow as it sweeps through plenty of big populated areas like St. Louis, Memphis, Little Rock, Chicago, Springfield, Gary, Indiana, down towards Paducah, Cape Girardeau, even seeing this very strong wind tomorrow. And then even into the overnight, this will push as far east as places like Nashville, maybe even Knoxville and Birmingham as well. So the other big threat, as I'm sure we're all wondering about, is that tornado risk. So again, this corresponds pretty well with the first map I showed you. We have that one big threat area here into the north, and then that other big threat area here to the south. But again, if you're in between that, don't think that you don't have the chance of seeing a tornado. On any given day, this kind of big brown area, this 5% area, is in itself a pretty big deal. It's just these other areas are even more enhanced than normal. So really anyone from Jackson, Mississippi to as far north as Chicago has the chance of seeing a tornado tomorrow. So all places in between really need to have or just kind of stay on guard and on alert throughout the day tomorrow. So taking a look now at radar, we're going to start here with this northern part of the storm system, and then we'll go to the southern side. And I think things are really going to kick off going into kind of later tomorrow afternoon. So during tomorrow morning, there'll be plenty of kind of widespread drizzliness and rain that moves on through, but the dangerous weather really begins tomorrow afternoon. And you'll notice right here on this low pressure system, these storms that fire on that low pressure are really going to have the highest risk of creating those damaging storms. So you'll notice you kind of have this shape that is forming, and with that, this is that warm sector that we often talk about. So any storms that form south of this kind of prefrontal convection and to the east of this cold front have the chance to become severe. So watch this general area as we move this ahead into time, and you'll notice as that warm front continues to lift northward, all of these storms in this area have the potential to become severe through much of eastern Iowa, just about all of Illinois, as well as Missouri, but especially eastern Missouri. And I want you to notice a lot of these storms kind of have this hooking shape to them down here into Illinois. So what that says to me is that these storms are really tapping into that warm inflow, and they are beginning to rotate very easily. So I would not be surprised at all to see a very strong long track tornado tomorrow in Missouri, Iowa, or Illinois. But even if that doesn't happen, just because of all of the wind energy coming in behind this low pressure, there's going to be very strong winds with these storms. So that will definitely be its own risk to have to worry about. And as we go through the evening tomorrow, this very strong area of storms is going to push all the way into Indiana. So if you're in Indiana during tomorrow evening, don't let your guard down because these storms will still be strong. You'll also notice on the north side here is a whole bunch of snow in and around Minneapolis and areas to the north and east of there, getting some big time snow out of this. The one good news for this section of the storm system is after the sun goes down, I think your threat really dies down, just because the further you are from the Gulf of Mexico, just the easier it is for that instability to die off once you get into the evening hours. So after the sun goes down, I think the threat will decrease pretty significantly through here, and that is the kind of one good news. But that snow will continue through the overnight Saturday before finally getting into overnight Friday before finally getting into Saturday. We have much nicer weather throughout just about all of the Midwest. Quickly looking at snow totals here, this is the latest National Weather Service forecast. So again, I don't think this is the big time story, so you can just kind of find where you live here on this map and get a general idea of what the National Weather Service is forecasting for your area. All right, so now let's go ahead and move south here through the kind of Ohio and Tennessee river valleys. And this is an area that I think will have more of an isolated severe threat, at least in terms of how many warnings we get. But I think the stronger storms, at least in terms of tornadoes, will be in this area. And even the other problem with this area is that I think the threat will last into the overnight hours, which will be problematic in its own right. So again, going into tomorrow afternoon, we're going to get this area of storms to form really from St. Louis all the way back down towards Shreveport. And any of these storms at any time tomorrow could begin to rotate and produce tornadic activity, especially here into western Tennessee, southeastern Missouri, southwestern Kentucky, and northeastern Arkansas, having the highest chance of these storms beginning to rotate and produce tornadoes. Now, as the sun goes down tomorrow, really, this is the area I don't want you to let your guard down. As we saw last week in Mississippi, I would not be surprised to see a pretty strong tornado during the overnight hours tomorrow somewhere in northern Mississippi, Tennessee, or northern Alabama. That would not surprise me at all, even over into places like Kentucky potentially, but I really think here in this circled area has the biggest risk of those damaging tornadoes overnight tomorrow. So if you're in that area, really, I just kind of beg you to make sure you have some way to get those warnings because I just about guarantee you we're going to get some overnight tornado warnings through this area tomorrow, at least up till midnight or so. Then going further into the overnight tomorrow, this line of storms continues to move eastbound. I think we kind of lose at least the, well, let me go ahead and pull this back, so I'm sorry. I think we kind of lose some of the big time severe weather threat after midnight. So after you can kind of pass Nashville over towards Knoxville, I think that threat will really begin to die down as well here into eastern Kentucky, as well as North Georgia. Definitely a much lower threat than areas back to the west. But luckily, after this line of storms moves through during the overnight tomorrow night, your chances of severe weather will also significantly go down. Before then getting into Saturday, we get another risk of severe weather. So Saturday, we have two areas kind of, again, one up here into the north, and again, I think up there the bigger threat will be strong winds, but can't rule out an isolated tornado. But the other area here is down here along the Carolina and Georgia coastlines and the low country here, as well as into the Florida Panhandle, as well having that risk of severe storms. So going ahead and breaking down radar into this time frame, now let's start with early Saturday morning. I think the severe threat will be pretty low Saturday morning, but we could have some isolated severe storms left over here, anywhere from Birmingham up through Atlanta, Greenville, Spartanburg, Charlotte, maybe even seeing some rumbles of thunder during the Saturday morning hours. But it's really Saturday afternoon that I would really begin to kind of start paying attention to those storms. So anywhere here from kind of Wilmington back down towards Columbia, Charleston, Savannah, Macon, Georgia. Any of these little storms here that begin to fire have the potential again to get kind of strong and maybe even rotate and produce an isolated tornado or two. And again, this will be during the afternoon hours of Saturday, anywhere from kind of the Outer Banks all the way down to the Florida Panhandle, having that highest risk of those severe storms. But right now, damaging winds look like the biggest threat here, but can't rule out a couple of tornadoes as well. So the kind of good news here is after all this clears out, by the time we get through that Saturday severe weather threat, Sunday looks much nicer. So this is a cloud cover map. You can see overall much nicer weather for much of the lower 48, although maybe some leftover showers and cloudy weather down here into the Gulf Coast region. But nonetheless, definitely much safer of a day on Sunday. And even looking at those high temperatures on Sunday, they look pretty spring-like for many of us. So if you can get out there and enjoy the weather Sunday, definitely do, because not to spoil the party, but it looks like we get another round of dangerous weather come early next week. So with all that said, if you have any questions, if there's anything I didn't quite answer in this video, feel free to leave a comment and I will make sure to get around to answering that before the night is over, because again, I want everyone to stay up to date with this kind of evolving situation. And I will also have another video out tomorrow afternoon, just so we're all up to date as it's kind of going on real time tomorrow. But with all that said, hope you all have a safe and amazing rest of your Thursday, and I will see you all tomorrow.